Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to be adding our hair for our Crazy Hair Day self-portraits. So this can be a little bit tricky, and so I really want you to pay attention to me and what I'm doing before you really get started on your own, because sometimes kids think they know what's going on and then they get involved in what they're working on and they realize, oops, I made some mistakes. So I'm going to show you first, and then maybe you could watch this video again and kind of go along with me. So I'd suggest watching first, doing what I do, or thinking about what I'm doing, so you kind of get the whole picture, and then going back and maybe re-watching this video and following along with me. Because we're making crazy hair, I like to think about different types of lines. So we're going to have all these different types of lines that are going to repeat in our hair. Now, if you remember, if you're my student and you remember going back to last year when we made those line drawings where we made the lines that went all the way across the paper and then we repeated those lines over and over again and we filled up our whole page. Well, that's the same kind of thing that we're going to do here. We do not want our lines to cross each other. That's really important because each one of those lines is going to end up making a strand or like a stripe of hair that you're going to be coloring in lots of different colors. So it's really important that your lines do not cross. Alright, so we're going to start by thinking about different types of lines. I always like to think about maybe fun types of lines that I like to draw. And one of those types is kind of like a curly line. Now, if you want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a line to kind of go across my page. And can you see how that line separates my head from the rest of my paper? You might want to think about that because we're going to be coloring this. So you're going to need some sort of line to separate your head from your hair when you're coloring. So don't just make, straight up or something like that. You need to have something to separate them. So some kids like to just come right here and draw a straight line across. If that's what you want to do, that's fine. This maybe is a little bit more challenging to work your lines into separating that. So now I'm going to draw another type of line. Maybe I'm going to do a zigzag line or something. And then I'm going to think about dividing up my space. So there's a lot of space down here, so maybe I'm going to draw a diagonal type of line here. Maybe I think I need something else up here. So there's a line, and maybe I'm going to do a horizontal line going across that way. Can you see how I've divided up this space into sections? That's really important that you start by doing that. Then we're going to need to make those places where we said our lines don't cross. Remember, we talked about how we need to color them in as stripes. So I'm going to come over here and I'm going to follow, just like we did last year, I'm going to follow that line all the way off the edge of my page. I'm going to come back here and I'm going to do it again. Now, one tip. Most of the time, every single time I do this project, I get someone who comes in here and they make these tiny, tiny, tiny little stripes. The problem with that, it looks really cool, but the problem with that is it's going to take you 18,000 years to color that. And we do not have that much time for this project. This project's going to take enough time as it is. So I want you to think about maybe being able to fit 1 to 2 fingers inside of your stripes. See, mine, I can barely fit 2 fingers in there. So I might want to think about making my stripes a little bit larger. So now I'm going to come over here and do another stripe, a different type of stripe. Following that along, filling in that space. I'm going to come over here. I'm going to follow that line. And follow that line. Maybe I'll come on this side of it and follow it. I'm going to come back to this line and follow it. Maybe I decide I want some vertical lines here, so maybe I'm going to come back and divide up the space with some vertical lines. Maybe I'm going to follow this line a little bit more. But can you see how I filled up that space with my crazy hairlines? I'm going to come down here and kind of round out that part of my head. Remember we talked about how we need that line so that we know where to color, where our colors are going to drop off. See how I followed that zigzag line? I'm going to follow it over here. Remember last year we talked about how sometimes you have to maybe go off the edge. Like think about the lines you made as almost like the edge of your paper. Maybe I need to come back and add a little bit there. I'm going to keep following it along. Here we go. I'm going to make my horizontal stripes. Maybe I want to add in another curvy line down here. That's fine, I can do that. And maybe I'm going to come all the way down here doing that, and same with my, oops, sorry, you can't see what I was doing. Come down here. See how I came all the way down to the edge of my paper with my stripes? And so now I'm going to follow this line until I hit my horizontal stripes. There we go. So now I have that crazy hair, and that's going to be a lot of fun to color. Now, one thing I want you to understand before we get started with our coloring with our markers is that there's a certain order that you should be coloring. The first thing you should do is you should color your skin. Color the part of your face. Then work on your clothes. Then work on your hair. Because a lot of times kids work in lots of different paces for this project, and sometimes some kids don't get done coloring their hair. If you have some areas in your hair that aren't colored, it's going to look a lot better to have some white areas in your hair than to not have your face colored. So start by coloring your skin, so your face and your neck, then move on to your clothes, then work on your hair, okay? Then when everything is colored, the very last step is that we're going to be outlining with a black marker. We're going to go over all of these things. And the same thing, you really want your face to stand out. So at the very end, you will use a black marker and go over every single pencil line that you just made. But if you do that first, if you use your black marker first, and then you come in here and use your skin color, a lot of times that skin color is going to be a lot lighter than the black marker, and it's going to smear. And you're going to have black smudges all over your page, and no one wants that. It also ruins that marker. So, remember, color first, the face, then the shirt, then the hair, and then when you're all done coloring, you'll have to ask the teacher before you start with this, but then you can start outlining, and that's when you use the black marker and you do it in the same order, the face, the shirt, and the hair, because if you don't get all the hair outlined, it's not as big of a deal. But if you forget to outline your nose, when we hang it up in the hallway, it looks like you have no nose, and that looks kind of silly. So, go ahead, rewatch the video, and think about adding in your hair and how that's going to work. Okay, if you have any questions, flag down the teacher, and we'll be around. All right, I'll see you soon. Bye.